Jake Claver just said, all the money will run through the XRP ledger. I know. Sounds crazy, right? But hear me out because I'm about to connect all the dots for you. Oh, and before I forget, there's some juicy new details about Ripple Prime that just surfaced. And guess what's sitting right in the middle of it all? Yep, XRP in a ridiculously big way. All right, let's dig into what Jake means by all the money. XRP and RLUSD will route from the XRP ledger and XRPL to EVM to Solana through starting this December. Final ITS audit updates are underway. After that, the Axelar Solana integration should be ready to go. Now look, if you're scratching your head right now, you're not alone. This looks like tech jargon threw up on your screen. But listen, once I break down what's actually happening, you'll see why Jake's making such a bold statement. Let me walk you through this step by step. So, this is big for interoperability and liquidity step. It connects XRP and LUSD more directly to Solana, DeFi, and trading ecosystem via Axelar, which can strengthen Ripple's institutional story and expand XRP's actual usage if volumes materialize. The tweet describes Axelar as extending its bridge to the XRP, and RLUSD can move from the XRPL to the XRPL EVM sidechain to Solana. With go live targeted December after final audits, Axelar already connects the XRPL EVM sidechain to dozens of other chains. So Solana becomes another high liquid venue for the network, not just a one-off. The implications here for Ripple's RLUSD stablecoin is being positioned as a cross-chain dollar asset, running preliminary on the XRP ledger and the EVM sidechain with Axelar, and the other bridges making it available on mini networks, including Solana. This supports Ripple's institutional pitch of one integration, many chains, for tokenization and payments and world asset flows. Because banks and asset managers can tap XRPL, but it will still reach ecosystems like Solana without bespoke engineerings per chain. And of course, the implications here for XRP. RLUSD transactions and apps are expected to settle mainly on the XRP ledger and the XRP LEVM sidechain, and those transactions consume and burn XRP gas. Honestly, it's not going to be some massive factor here. Every time you hear someone hyping up the whole gas burn thing, just be like, okay, buddy, take a seat. Here's the reality. In the last 13 years, give or take, we've torched maybe 14 million XRP. Now picture this. Every single transaction happening anywhere in the world runs through the XRP ledger. I'm talking everything. You know what gets burned? Maybe 30 to 40 million XRP annually. We're not going to see any real impact from that while we're alive. So if the burn rate stays where it's at, yeah, don't get your hopes up on that front, all right? Just keeping it real with you. As Axelar and Squid enable one-click deployments of cross-chain routing, DeFi and real-world asset projects can use wrapped or bridged XRP as collateral or yield-bearing capital on multiple chains, potentially deepening liquidity and TVL tied back to XRP, even if the front-end user is on Solana or other networks. All right, so about this whole all the money concept, I want to give you some actual examples so you can see what we're really talking about here. So all the money will run on the XRP ledger is a meme level way of saying that in full adoption scenario, most global value transfers and payments could be routed through the XRP ledger as a neutral plumbing for banks, fintechs, CBDCs, stablecoins, and tokenized assets, as it is an aspirational marketing language, not a literal forecast that every dollar, euro, or asset will exclusively use the XRP ledger. The origin of this phase, the phase grew out of a long-running XRP community narratives that position XRP as a universal bridge asset for cross-border payments and liquidity. Over time, it fused with meme culture around all the money, branding the tokens like ATM meme coins on the XRP ledger, reinforced when Ripple CEO referenced all the money on stage at XRPL events. So here's what Brad does that I absolutely love. He'll take something floating around the community and just add this layer of intrigue to it. It's actually pretty brilliant. Most advocates stick to the technical stuff. When people say all the money in this context, they usually mean cross-border bank and remittance flows using XRPL as settlement and liquidity rail, with XRP as a bridge between currencies, stablecoin RLUSD, tokenized deposits, and other fiat representatives issued on the XRPL, and moving over its DEX, AMM, and payment channels. Tokenized real-world assets, we're talking about securities, commodities, and real-world assets, and DeFi actively setting on the XRPL and/or on its sidechains, with XRP used for fees and liquidity. In this version, XRPL is the TCIP of value that most institutions and apps plug into, even if end users never use it directly. I thought you deserved a bit more digging on my part there. Okay, Ripple Prime, this is where things get interesting. Yes, Ripple can sell XRP to OTC clients, although it has previously stated that it has ceased its old OTC sales model in favor of selling XRP through its on-demand liquidity product. However, Ripple has also launched a new institutional-focused digital asset brokerage called Ripple Prime through its acquisition of Hidden Road, which enables U.S. institutions to execute over-the-counter OTC stop trades in major digital assets, including XRP. People keep asking the same question over and over. When the OTC desks finally tap out, where do institutions even source their XRP? Here's the thing, Ripple Prime is basically the answer staring us right in the face. So what it breaks down to is Ripple Prime as a new platform allows institutional clients to trade major digital assets, including XRP, over the counter. This is different from Ripple's old OTC sales model, which involves selling XRP directly to sophisticated counterparties at a discount. Think about walking up to Ripple back when XRP was chilling at 25-30 cents and getting it for even less than that. Talk about playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Now here's where it gets spicy. Future possibility. The new Ripple Prime platform creates a channel for institutional clients to engage in OTC trading with Ripple, which could be considered a new form of OTC sales. Okay, but why should you even care? And hold on, why is the price still sitting where it is? We just watched more than $500 million worth of buy orders for XRP come through these ETFs in 2 weeks flat. You'd think that would launch the price into orbit, right? Wrong. Here's what's actually going down. The vast majority of these deals, we're talking nearly every single one, are happening behind closed doors at OTC desks, those private over-the-counter trading shops, yeah? Now, those OTC desks are only holding a few billion XRP, probably somewhere between 1 and 2 billion. What happens when that well runs dry? Institutions start banging down Ripple's door directly, and when Ripple runs low, guess where they're forced to shop? Straight to the public markets. Ripple's escrow setup only lets a certain amount of XRP leak out monthly, and right now they're facing this massive decision. Do they throw open the floodgates and dump all that escrowed XRP to satisfy these ETF appetites? Or do they take a different route and go, hey, we're cutting loose maybe 30%, that's our ceiling. The rest, staying locked down tight because we're not idiots. Look, here's what keeps me up at night. Flip back to last year and like clockwork, a billion XRP would escape escrow every single month. But check it, they'd typically shove around 80% right back in. So we're talking 800 million vanishing again. Cut to this year, same billion breaking out monthly. Only now, we're seeing closer to 70% getting stuffed back into escrow. Yeah, it bounces around month to month, but that's basically where the needle sits. What I really don't want is hitting next year and watching them just leave it all out there. Zero relocking. Because then you've got this absolute avalanche of supply dumping onto exchanges. And look, that's a disaster nobody's trying to see happen. So I'm genuinely scratching my head over what Ripple's gonna do here. And that's why I keep saying, pay attention to this stuff, because it's not just noise. This could launch XRP's price or absolutely crater it. I'm tracking every single breadcrumb on this and bringing it all back to you right here on the channel. So lock in that follow button and slap those notification bells when we drop content. Trust me, you'll regret missing any of this. Cool, let's shift gears here. The ETF funds only have a few options to source XRP. No, Ripple cannot sell XRP directly to institutional investors at this time because of a 2023 court ruling deemed those institutional sales to be unregistered securities offerings. While the SEC has dropped its appeal and granted Ripple a waiver to raise capital under a specific exemption, institutional investors can still purchase XRP through other channels, such as digital asset exchanges or upcoming spot ETFs. Direct institutional sales were prohibited in 2023. The U.S. court ruled that Ripple's direct sales of XRP to institutional investors under written contracts violated securities law. Programmatic sales are not prohibited. The court determined that programmatic or algorithmic sales of XRP on public exchanges were not unregistered securities offerings because the buyers did not know who they were buying or whether they were buying directly from Ripple. Ripple can now seek capital from institutions following the SEC's waiver. Ripple is now permitted to raise capital from accredited investors without registering with the SEC, but it still doesn't mean that it can resume the direct, unregistered institutional sales in the past. Institutional investors can still buy XRP. Institutional investors can still acquire XRP by purchasing it on digital asset trading platforms through other means, such as potential future XRP base or ETFs, and currently under review by the SEC. So your brain starts spinning, right? And we're only talking about the US here. If your bank's planted anywhere outside American soil, guess what? Those US rules and red tape, they don't apply to you whatsoever, which basically gives Ripple complete freedom to move however they please in those zones. So we're going to witness this whole chess match unfold as these companies and institutions figure out creative workarounds to dodge all this regulation. Ripple's acquisition of G Treasury is basically dropping real-time blockchain-based liquidity into the heart of the corporate treasury. And yes, that creates competitive pressure on every other treasury and payments vendor to move towards similar 24/7, 365 rails. What Ripple plus G Treasury actually changed? G Treasury platform already connects large corporations to their banks, ERPs, and cash FX workflows. Ripple is now wiring those workflows into its blockchain rails. Stablecoins like RLUSD and on-demand liquidity-style cross-border infrastructure, so payments and liquidity can move and settle almost instantly instead of days. The combined stack is a pitch as active trapped capital, same-day or near-instant settlement, reduces cash in transit, lowers FX exposure windows, and lets treasurers redeploy idle balances into yield or pay down debt instead of parking them in no-throw accounts. So we're in completely uncharted waters here. These financial institutions have never been able to milk extra capital daily or hourly from cash that's basically just rotting in their vaults. Ripple's rolling out tech that's going to put rocket fuel in these workflows and unlock crazy new possibilities for institutions and corporations to actually put their money to work. And here's where it gets intense. The second one player gets these weapons, everyone else competing against them is suddenly bleeding money, you know? Those other guys, still stuck riding the dinosaur Nostro account train. No bonus yields happening with their capital. Weekend money transfers? Forget about it. They're handicapped in... Honestly, we could build a list a mile long spelling out why this tech absolutely demolishes the ancient banking infrastructure, right? The perks just don't stop coming. And the price tag's lower too. Hold up, what? All these bells and whistles and we're paying less? Yeah, I'm sold. Somebody get me a contract. Where's my signature going? This thing pitches itself. Oh, hang on, we touched on that already. Whoops. Why 24/7 access matters for treasurers. Traditional cross-border payments force corporations to pre-fund accounts and live with 3 to 5 days settlement with 3 to 7% fees on opaque tracking digital asset rails, cut settlement to minutes, reduce costs 60 to 90%, and provide real-time visibility, which directly improves working capital and risk management. Real Treasury case studies already show millions of dollars in trap liquidity being freed up when a portion of international payments moves to instant rails. And G Treasury is now embedding exactly that type of capability at scale for Fortune 500 clients. Competitive pressure on vendors. G Treasury's main rivals, Kybera, FIS Treasury, and risk manager Ion Treasury, or Copa Treasury, are selling full-stack TMS platforms to the same enterprise clients. So if one vendor offers embedded real-time blockchain rails, the others either match it or risks being seen as batch-only or bank hours systems. At the same time, big banks like JP Morgan and fintechs like Modern Treasury are publicly pushing real-time and stablecoin-based treasury solutions, which means always-on liquidity is quickly becoming table stakes rather than a nice feature to have. So if you're planning to survive as a treasury bank, corporation, or any outfit supporting these worldwide operations, you absolutely need this tech stack. No negotiations. That's the kind of language we've been dying to hear. Does every single company on the planet need to plug into blockchain systems? Yeah, I'm not going to beat that dead horse. You can already connect those dots yourself, but wow, the pieces are snapping into place like crazy, right? You've got the ETF momentum building up steam. Then there's the treasury side of things percolating, and let's not skip the EVM sidechain movement gaining traction, plus all the insane activity with Flare and Midnight. Dude, I'm sitting here struggling to process how fast everything's moving. And hold on, we still need to talk about the banking license. What kind of ammunition does that put in the chamber? What barriers does that demolish? What regulatory haze evaporates once that drops, right? Brad actually dove into this whole topic just a couple months back. Take a listen to this.
Ecosystem. People will say things like, well, XRP has a CEO. And I'm like, who is it? Ripple has a CEO. That's me. There's scores, if not 100 other CEOs building around the XRP ecosystem. And I think that's when I hear people say that, I think, okay, they're not educated about what's going on. And so we need to educate people. Obviously, you see that in a number of other tokens where there's a very distributed, very open source community. People don't understand. Ripple does not control XRP. It is open source. There have been amendments passed to the XRP open source technology that we opposed. We were against them and they still passed. That's okay. That's open source technology. There's other things we have championed that have passed, but it takes 80% of the community approving those amendments, which Ripple doesn't have control of that.
Oh, dude, can you even visualize the chaos when that headline breaks? Ripple's bank license just got stamped approved. But honestly, what's got me really buzzing is waiting for a BlackRock, Fidelity, or Vanguard to step up and announce they're throwing their hat in the spot XRP ETF ring. That would send absolute shockwaves rippling through the whole market. That type of declaration would pump some major adrenaline into prices down the road. So look at what went down today. In just the first half hour of market action, we're watching 45,000 shares trade hands, followed by 23,000, then 16,000, and another 9,000 shares getting snapped up across these spot XRP ETFs. And don't forget, each of those shares converts into a certain pile of XRP. You'd need to zoom in on the specifics for each one, and those numbers do dance around over time. But man, some legitimately killer developments are brewing right now. Here's the scorecard, 2 hours and 30 minutes past opening. Canary Capital's tracking around $4.67 million. Franklin Templeton's hovering near $4.24 million. Bitwise is cruising at about $4 million. Grayscale's sitting at roughly $1.6 million. And ResRex Osprey's parked around $1.4 million. Yeah, things are tapering off slightly, but remember, loads of people are gone traveling or chilling on vacation at the moment. So just witnessing $15 or $20 million flow in, maybe $15 million during the first couple hours, we could easily cruise to $25 or $30 million before closing bell. And that's with only these 5 players. And imagine when 21 shares, CoinShares, and that other one I keep forgetting about finally launch. My head's absolutely buzzing with everything swirling around right now, but honestly, what an incredible moment to be watching all this. All right, Chad Steingraber said, when you see 11.64 million XRP getting moved into Coinbase, it's no coincidence with Coinbase as the primary custodian for asset managers. This is institutions stacking XRP straight in a cold storage. That's literally the blueprint playing out in real time, right? Coinbase has turned itself into the trusted vault where the big dogs stash their treasure, and they've built what's probably one of the most gigantic custody machines anywhere on Earth. This is the safe haven where institutional giants feel comfortable parking their stacks right next to all these other monster-sized corporations and players. So get ready to watch XRP tsunami into Coinbase for those exact reasons. Look, I'm cutting this off before we hit feature length runtime. Thanks for rolling with me through all this. If any of this landed for you, go show that like button some love. Share what's on your mind in the comments. Fire this over to anyone you know who's thirsty for deeper XRP insights. Man, that would seriously brighten my whole month. Just truly grateful you carved out some time for this today. You'll catch me again when the next one goes live.